Welcome to the No Camps Podcast. I'm Sunny G.
I'm Akash.
I'm Jason. And welcome to the No Camps Podcast, where we discuss a variety of movies and films and various other topics. And today we're going to be talking about Rogue One.
The world is coming undone. Imperial flags reign across the galaxy.
Can you be trusted without your shackles?
Let's just get this over with, shall we?
We've a mission for you. A major weapons test is imminent. We need to know how to destroy it.
If you're really doing this, I want to help.
Good.
Good.
We're all big fans of Star Wars here. Came out last year, and in preparing for the Last Jedi, we're going to start talking more about each one of these episodes and making it a discussion. So today we're just going to go through the plot and talk about what we like about it, what we don't like about it, and where it kind of fits in the overall universe. Is that cool with you guys?
Yeah, I'd like to amend that previous statement. I think I'm more of a fan of the idea of Star Wars than I am of the execution of Star Wars. Okay, just wanted to put that out there.
Oh my, you had to. Okay.
Whatever.
All right. So I guess general thoughts. What are your general thoughts about this movie? What were your thoughts going in and when you left the theater?
You want me to go?
Yeah, you can go first.
Okay, guys. So I saw this movie in theaters, I think twice. I'm not sure if I saw it with either one of you guys when you came back home for Christmas or not, but I didn't like this movie both the times I saw it in theaters. I left kind of thinking it was cheesy, thinking, why was this movie made? No, not really. But I know I wasn't happy. And this time, on my third rewatch, I think I appreciated this movie more. Some of the things that this movie does really well, it also butchers. For example, like some of the characters and character interactions really work for me in this movie, and some flat out just don't. I really enjoyed the character interactions with this in this movie, specifically we'll get into that later, but there are certain character interactions that I really enjoyed and some that I really didn't even believe or buy. And I really enjoyed the battle scene in this movie, and I think it was filmed in a way that we've never seen battle scenes in Star Wars, which was really fun. And on top of that, locations. This movie had some of the best locations and really made you feel like you're in a freaking galaxy far, far away with all sorts of environments. And that makes Star Wars so much fun because the idea of being able to explore a completely different worlds and visit those worlds is what really makes me excited about Star Wars. So on my third rewatch, I liked Rogue One a lot better than I did the first two times.
Interesting. I was looking for anything that was better than Force Awakens. So when I saw it in the theaters, I think that was what made me really happy with it. I think upon rewatching it a couple times, some of the flaws and I think a lot of the characters' stories and how they're presented and how those characters evolve started to shine through. But in the end, I still really like it, mainly for the I think for the quality of retconning that they were able to do. Mm-hmm. Like there's the one thermal exhaust port destroying the entire battle station seems like a minor flaw, which at the time you're just kind of like whatever, you don't think about it too hard. And only with the benefit of seeing movies that try to plug up those kind of plot holes way more seriously do you kind of see it is even a plot hole in the first place. But going back in time and saying, no, that was intentional from the very beginning, I thought was really interesting and pretty clever. Right. Not to mention, I think just seeing Darth Vader on screen and and seeing what he did more than made up for the other flaws of the story. I agree, kind of to a certain degree. It didn't need to exist. This is a classic example of Disney just trying to wear out their copyright and trying to. But yeah, but I still enjoy it, especially the CG of the Death Star scenes and Darth Vader scenes.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I'd have to agree with what you guys basically said. I think it's maybe the most like beautifully shot Star Wars movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just visually, it's breathtaking, and like you said, Akash, I really like that we go to a bunch of different locations, and we're going to get into like all of them, but it is cool, like the variances of places that they go, and that's one of the things that people like about the prequels, right? Is they kind of explore on that side of the Star Wars universe, which I think this movie does really well.
Right.
And I mean, did it really need to be made? I don't know. We can dive more into that. But if a Star Wars movie was going to be made, I like that they chose this. And I like that it was something like Sonny said. It kind of answered a question that maybe, like the diehard Star Wars nerds asked. Like, why the hell was there a fatal flaw in the Death Star? But for the most part, no one really cares. It's just, you kind of let those things go. So I don't know. For what it was and what we got, I really, really enjoyed it. But yeah, let's just kind of dive into the plot. So our opening scene, we see on that beautiful planet of Lamu, I think is how it's pronounced.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and so Krennic's ship is arriving onto Lamu, where he meets Galen Erso and tries to convince him into coming back into completing the Death Star. And we kind of learn that Galen is an engineer or a scientist for the Empire. And they're almost done building this crazy big weapon that can destroy whole planets, which we all know of very well as the Death Star. And as that's going on, or right before that actually happens, Galen and his wife Lyra try to hide Jyn, who's going to be our protagonist in this movie. And she's a young girl. She has a little Jedi action figure, what looks kind of like a little Jedi action figure. And she goes and hides Jyn. And while Krennic is talking with Galen, Lyra comes back. They get into a scuffle. Lyra dies. Galen gets taken away. And then we meet Saul Guerrera at the top of this pit that Jyn was hiding in. Yeah. And he rescues Jyn. And that's our first scene. So what did you guys think of the scene?
Man, the location shot was stunning. I don't know where it was shot, but it looks so beautiful, especially when the spaceship is landing onto the dust field. I don't think that could have been done any better. And there's like a contrast in the scene, especially when Krennic gets out of the ship and he's wearing all white and all of his soldiers are in complete black. I think that's a really nice color, and it was just shot really beautifully, in my opinion.
Well, it had that black soil too.
Yeah.
So just like that color, that black soil and that green grass. Yeah.
Why is orphan children such a recurring theme in Star Wars?
Or in Disney.
Because it's like, why would you stay at home raising kids when you could explore the galaxy?
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah, I guess
it's basically to make all of us who have parents feel like shit.
Make us wish we didn't have parents.
Yeah.
And we could be orphaned, because then we could be Jedis.
Yeah.
Do y'all like this origin story for Jyn?
Well, it's like, what origin story? She watches her mom get killed completely unnecessarily. Then we just see her all grown up. Like, we don't see any training with her and Saul. Nothing. We don't see any of their relationship. Yeah.
It's like, accept this story. No. This is what we're telling you, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
I say no.
It's just to establish the connection that she has with the Death Star. Like, it kind of has to be Jyn. I think that's what this scene really showed, was like, it has to be Jyn to figure this out, because she's the one she's Galen's daughter. Mm-hmm. And to the point too, I like this movie in the sense that, I mean, if you know the story, no one's going to survive.
Yeah.
If you know the story, if you're into that lore, no one's going to survive. So I kind of like that the characters are brief, and we'll get more into the other characters too. You don't really learn a whole lot about each character, and I can see why that's a problem for a lot of folks, but I think it's cool. I kind of like that it's just like, these are temporary people in this time. the only homage they get in the storyline is like one or two lines in the original Star Wars. So it's like this is a small story, and these people don't really matter in the greater sense. So I almost like that. It's like, yeah, it's almost too much of Jyn. I don't really care. I just want to see her do what she needs to do and get the plans through, and that's it.
I'm just asking for an intro where we don't see the Empire land on a planet and lay waste to the people living there. Like, can that be a thing? Can episode 8 be something different? You know?
What did you think about the opening, like the hard intro into the planet?
I liked it.
I thought it was great.
Yeah. It makes it feel like a different movie. It makes it feel like it's not a Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
And they totally should, right? It's not Star Wars proper.
Right.
Proper.
Yeah. All right. So the next scene, it's 15 years later, and we've learned that an Empire pilot named Bodhi has defected from the Empire and supposedly has a message from Galen to give to Saul Guerrera there on Jeddah. And we see Cassian, who's going to be another protagonist of ours, who is kind of a spy assassin for the Alliance. And you see him kind of gathering intel from this extremely panicked guy. And when push comes to shove, ends up killing that guy. Mm-hmm. What'd you guys think of that? What'd you guys think of that intro? Or how'd you guys think of that as an intro for Cassian?
That was a great intro. It tells you who he is. I mean, it tells you he'll stop at nothing to accomplish his missions. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it kind of establishes what he's about. And this is what I was talking about at the top of the show. Like, I think Rogue One does Cassian's character pretty well, but it completely butchers Saul Guerrera. Like, that might be because I think Forrest Whitaker just does a terrible job with that character. Like, his idea of playing a rogue rebel leader is to make a really weird accent. I don't know what the fuck that was.
Oh, good. Yeah. That weird.
Dude,
run, Jyn.
Yeah. It pisses me off. It pissed me off so much watching him act. We could have really done without him in this movie. Maybe not the character, even though the character doesn't really add much depth or layer, other than just someone from Jin's past and how they kind of corral her into this mission. But that is, again, to my original point, like, one thing the movie completely like messes up, but it does a good job with Cassian. So I mean, we'll let it slide.
No, I disliked Cassian's character completely.
Really?
At this moment.
Really? At this moment, or just at the end?
I dislike both of them. The guy whining, he's like, "Oh, my arm!
Yeah.
What are you doing, my arm?
I can't climb
out of here!" And I was like, "Dude, quit your fucking whining. If you'd shut up, maybe the Empire wouldn't notice you." And
whinging.
Yeah, and then Cassian kills him, and I was like, "Well, I'm sure maybe he has a good reason for it, and we'll figure that out later." But as of right now, I don't care for your character whatsoever.
But see, the thing is, we've never seen anyone part of the Rebel Alliance that's kind of been like Cassian. They've always been
morally ambiguous.
Yeah,
right?
morally ambiguous.
Yeah.
They've always been goody two shoes, doing what's right. You know what I mean?
It's like real. It's like gritty.
Exactly.
The war's going on, and he's like one of the foot soldiers. He's not Luke and Leia just sitting in their ivory tower watching everything. It's everybody on the ground floor. But dude, Sonny, you are so right about that guy. Like, whenever I watch it, and every single time I watch this movie, and I've seen it, like, I saw it like 3 times in the theater. He is so over the top, that guy. And he is so, and he reminds me of, like, in the game Assassin's Creed, whenever you would like pass the passerby conversations that you would hear, he sounded like a video game character that's supposed to give like a certain scene of dialogue or that you have an interaction with, and that was him. It was just very over the top. So I was happy he got shot, personally.
Good. I'm glad we're on the same page there.
All right, so I guess we can move on. So we see Jyn. Jyn's in some kind of a prison, it looks like, and she's getting transported, and she's at this labor camp on yet another planet called Wobani. I think that's how it's pronounced.
Yep.
And while she's inside this truck, she gets rescued by a group of Alliance members. She obviously doesn't know what's going on. she beats everybody's ass and she runs out of the truck and she gets choke slammed by one of the greatest Star Wars characters ever, K2SO. And then they bring Jin to the Alliance, I guess what would you call it? The Alliance headquarters there on Yavin 4, where they meet Mon Mothra. We see Mon Mothra again after episode 3. And they basically try to convince Jin to really get an introduction with Saul Guerrera to really help aid in the Alliance. And that's where she finds out that supposedly there's a message with her dad. So I guess she's finally finding out, for the first time in 15 years that her dad has survived.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they try to convince her to join the mission by telling her, you're going to help rescue your father from the Empire. So.
Right, but then we also learn, and I guess it's attached to the same scene, but we also learn that as they are leaving to go find her father, Cassian has received orders that we're not going to find Galen and bring him back, that he's too much of a threat, and he has orders to shoot and kill.
Right.
Yeah.
And we also get that nice little scene with Bail Organa, like coming right in there and just, hey guys, I'm in this movie too.
Yeah.
That's pretty much just for diehard Star Wars fans, I think. I mean, he really serves no purpose other than that.
He came out of such left field when I first watched that scene that when I saw his character, I had forgotten for a second what her dad looked like. So I thought she was hallucinating her dad in the room.
Yeah. And
I was like, oh, okay. It's like but no, it's just another character that kind of has, is ethnically ambiguous, kind of like her dad. It's just, that's him.
That's great.
It was a little weird. But it was cool. I like those callbacks. And I guess the theme of this movie that we should keep in mind is whether or not this was fan service, which is what a lot of people argue. And it sounds like Akash is really arguing this was the reason this movie exists, is just to pay off fan service. So I think that's just part of it. This movie is riddled with Easter eggs and just Bail Organa being a character for no reason. He doesn't need to be in this movie.
He doesn't.
He's in it. Yeah. Just to remind you, we're in kind of the same time frame as the last trilogy. So there's Bail. But yeah, what did you guys think of just Mon Mothra and that whole scene? Did you think that was were you convinced by it? Did you think she should have gone? Because I remember watching that movie, just I don't know, it seemed like a very quick transition to she's just a rebellion, she's not doing anything to. Yeah, I'm on board. I'll comply with you.
Let's rush this part along so we can get to the action, right?
Yeah.
The scene worked as well as I guess it was intended to, just to show us what we're about to encounter with Jin's character, what she's committing to. I mean, besides that, it didn't leave any more of an impact on me other than that.
What we end up figuring out once we watch the movie and we compare it to the trailers is that virtually no scenes from the trailers are in the movie.
Yep.
And when you match that with some of the news that came out about the movie's production, we learned that a lot of the scenes had to be rewritten. So I have to wonder what they were intending that scene to be.
Agreed.
And what they were really trying to say about Jin's character. But regardless, it just seems like they just needed to come up with some arbitrary relationship between her and the rebellion just to get them involved and commingled in some singular story.
That's
otherwise, real significance, I felt.
That would be a big criticism I have for the movie. It's just this point in the movie, it feels rushed already. There's a whole arc of Jin that's just been played out in the first 7 minutes of this movie. And it feels a little rushed, but I think it's just because I think a big part of this movie was just the action. They wanted to show the really awesome action that comes later. And it was just, again, these aren't important characters. Don't get attached because they're not going to be around for very long. So let's just get them moving. I guess I agree with you guys.
Right. The part that cut out was her just stating that I'm a rebel or something, right? Something along those lines.
Yeah, this is a rebellion.
I rebel.
I rebel.
Yeah.
All right, Jin. You're so cool.
All right. So on their way out, by the way, they see. Is it at this point? Actually, I don't know. Is this at this point that we see R2D2 and C3PO?
Yeah, they're just chilling outside the hangar as it's as they're flying away, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, C-3PO mentions Jeddah, like he knows the place.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they leave. So Cassian, K2SO, and Jin go to Jeddah to find Saul Guerrero and find the pilot, the defective pilot. And while they're there in the city, they meet Donnie Yen as Chirrut, who's just a blind, what appears to be a street beggar, and he kind of has an interaction with Jin. But we find out that he's what is he? He's like what's the title? Like Master of the Temple, or he's a keeper of the Kyber Temple.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
He's like an old Jedi mystic, but he's not a Jedi.
Right.
But they run into him on the street, and his sidekick, Boz, who his only job in this movie is to shoot a big gun, which he does really well. And so they get into a street battle, which is kind of like reminiscent of, modern day wars that are happening. And, I think that was the idea of that scene. But they get caught up in they kind of get caught up in this guerrilla battle on the streets, surrounded by Guerrera's men, and get brought in. And so the crew gets brought in. All of them go to prison. He meets with Saul. Saul shows her the message. She finally sees the message and the image of her dad for the first time in 15 years. Break out of prison. The guys at this point being Cassian, K2SO, the pilot, Bodhi, who they met in prison, Chirrut, and Boz. And so they all break out. And as they're breaking out and leaving Jeddah, the Death Star has ordered a strike and is actually slowly destroying the Death Star, which, destroying Jeddah. Destroying Jeddah, which is the first time supposedly the Death Star has really been called into action. So this is the first strike of the Death Star.
It's important to note too, like Jeddah is the home of Kyber crystals, which not only powers lightsabers but also powers the Death Star.
Right, and that's why the Empire has any presence there, is that they're mining the temple for Kyber crystals. That's right.
There's a lot to chew on this setting or a sequence of events here. So I'll just start in that order you kind of presented. This city is really fucking awesome. The city of Jeddah. I love one thing Star Wars gets right every single time is their little pan out or pan over the new sittings, and really gives you a feel for what it's like to kind of live there within 15 seconds, right? They have like their flyover, then they jump to their street shots, and it kind of gives you an idea if this is kind of like a merchant village where like a lot of trading happens, probably lower intelligence creatures or whatever like that. But I thought
like a Tatooine kind of a place.
Right, completely. From there, like I really enjoyed the setting, but man, I really dislike the blind guy. I thought he was so over the top and cheesy, and his chant just pissed me off the whole movie. Like I was hoping he'd die sooner than he did.
Oh man, Donnie Yen, man.
Dude, no offense to the actor. The actor did a great job, but that character is just such a cheesy character. Like he's so annoying. Like it's such a Star Wars thing to do, where a blind guy is able to defeat 10 stormtroopers. Like, so
which none of them shoot at him. None of them shoot blasters at him. They all go hand-to-hand combat.
Right.
Well, I suspect their reasoning is that, well, I'm not going to shoot a blind guy. Are you shitting me?
Yeah, good point. There's some other stuff, but what did you guys think of the opening sequence? And I kind of want to get into the Saw scene a little bit after I hear what you have to say.
Okay, well, let's see. I don't know if you mentioned it explicitly, but like Bodhi meets up with Saw.
Right.
And yeah, I did not have an issue. I mean, I didn't have any. Sorry, let me start that over. Bodhi meets with Saw, and I thought the actor who plays Bodhi, Riz Ahmed, is just playing Riz Ahmed in space.
Yep.
His line delivery is just, hey, let me say it once and then let me repeat it again for extra emphasis.
But with shaky face too. He's got shaky.
Yeah, but with shaky face. Yeah. And acting nervous. And yeah, I just did not care for his character whatsoever.
Like, I'm completely up for diversity in film, but it seems a lot of the casting decisions in this movie was like, let's get as many different people of color in this movie together and throw them in there. Like, hey, they're all gonna die this movie anyway, so we're not locked into movies.
This way we don't have to support multiculturalism.
Yeah, if there's a moment for diversity, it's now.
Walt Disney was heard screaming in his grave. When
let's see. I thought the scene with what took me immediately out of the scene where they have the street scuffle was, and I think I showed you guys a video about this, was where like they're just shooting at each other, but there doesn't seem to be any real consequence to it. Like, we know when they're shooting at each other that the stormtroopers can't shoot for shit, and that the heroes are dead accurate every time, right? And then we get to go meet Saw, and again takes me out of the movie because Forrest Whitaker completely overacts his character.
Butchers that character in that scene, man.
Yeah. I will say I maybe the only character I did actually like was Donnie Yen's character. Just because he was like a little goofy Jedi groupie who just wishes he was a Jedi.
What was his stupid phrase? The Force is with me.
I'm one with the Force, and the Force is with me, or something like that. Yeah.
Hated that so much.
Yeah.
Sonny, like you were saying, the only gravity you really get from the battle scene is the little shot of the child screaming and crying.
Yeah.
Like,
the token child, right?
The token child. It's a token.
That they never. Yeah, exactly. They do it so often that it doesn't even mean anything. It's just a signal for like, oh, okay, someone's gonna go out of their way to save this kid. And
look, I think the point is they just want to remind you that there's bad parents everywhere, and including here. You know,
you're just like, oh shit, I'm bailing. Yeah, and they leave it high and dry.
And the whole, they try to rush the interaction too with Jin and Saw, but for me, that scene partially worked just solely based on the score behind the scene, which I think was really brilliant. And if that scene was shot with absolutely no background music at all, it would have just crashed and burned. But I think whoever scored this movie really was able to get some meaning and feeling behind that interaction.
But I'll say Jin or Felicity Jones brings a good performance there too when she's looking at the hologram. Like she sells that too, even though it's like again we have no reason to be emotionally invested into this father-daughter relationship. But yeah, she plays it really well.
Yeah,
I honestly really like this sequence, like the whole sequence. I like K2SO. He's hilarious, and he starts his little back and forth with Jin here. They establish that they don't like each other. And he kind of comes in and saves their asses later, and even though he's not supposed to be there, I kind of like those little elements of it too. And I like the street battle scene. Every Star Wars battle is out in the open or it's out in space. So, and maybe I'm wrong, and correct me if I'm wrong, but have we ever seen one that's just like in the streets of a city? Have we seen stormtroopers like hiding along passageways and hallways? And I liked seeing that. I thought that was a cool element.
Not in the way that it was shot during this movie. Not at all. This is completely.
We've seen stuff like that in the prequels, but
it was
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I did think it was kind of cheesy. The scene where Cassian goes to like save Jin, and you see Jin just like beat up 5 guys with that staff, and then just like turn and give that classic Star Wars look at Cassian. Right. It was like kind of exactly the same thing that happened in The Force Awakens, right? When Finn goes to save Rey, and he sees Rey just like beats up 3 guys in the market. So they're really just trying to remind you. That's like Star Wars' go-to. This is a strong female character. Right. She can beat up 5 guys on her own kind of thing. She doesn't need a man to take care of her.
She doesn't need no man. Yeah.
Speaking of Rey, like, do you think some of the action cues for Rogue One were taken from The Force Awakens, or do you think they're completely free of any outside influence?
How do you mean?
Just some of the action scenes, like the way the stormtroopers are shooting their guns and the way the action scenes were choreographed, it kind of reminded me a little bit of the intro scene of The Force Awakens.
With the way like they're holding stuff, like their stance.
No, just the way the action was shot, just how it was kind of like conveyed to the audience of how this battle is taking place and how, yeah, pretty much how this battle is being conducted.
I mean, maybe a little bit, only because it's like in the beginning of Force Awakens, they're invading and killing like a village.
Mm-hmm.
So only in the sense that it's like this military force, killing, I don't know,
Yeah,
civilians.
it's hard for me to really convey, but like there's some like stylistic elements of the battle scenes which I felt like maybe were borrowed a little bit from The Force Awakens, but that could also be in my mind. But
you mean having like the camera shot behind someone's shoulder, so it's looking at the
Sure.
perspective of the shooter and that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
One thing we didn't explicitly mention is that the way that they cut her watching her dad's hologram
Oh my god.
and
yes.
and revealing to us some of the inner politics of being a general in the Empire's military, I thought was pretty great. And and more specifically, all of the internal politics of being those generals, I thought was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they did a pretty good job with the CG, CGing Grand Moff Tarkin, and then showing off how Krennic. This is Krennic's baby pet project, and immediately after proving itself, Tarkin swiftly and deftly in front of everyone declares it his own success.
Oh yeah, cold-blooded.
And
So good.
Yeah, and knows exactly how to threaten him, right? Because I think it's in this same moment that he tells him like, "Oh, I think you need to go check up on Galen at that base," right? Like he knows more than Krennic does at every point in time, and that's your classic sign of a true, clever, cunning villain, right?
What also makes a desperate
to be fucked with.
It also makes Krennic a desperate villain, which is a really scary villain. He's obviously a guy that's just dying to get power and dying for recognition for his accomplishments. So he gets this like desperate aesthetic to him that's a scary villain to me. Somebody it's like he'll do anything because he wants it about himself and he wants to get further in life. So yeah, I think they did him really well. I think like Krennic was a good villain.
Right.
And it also makes them a little bit more relatable. Like when you can pity the villain, like they're not so abstract and one-dimensional that you can just easily write them off, hate them, or just like hope for them to die, right? Like you almost, you still don't want Krennic to win, but you feel bad for him. You really want, you're like, the more you see Grand Moff Tarkin fuck with Krennic, the more enjoyment you get out of knowing that Grand Moff Tarkin is going to die a horrible death, right?
Yeah.
And the more you just want to see like Krennic just get taken care of as well.
Like you guys mentioned, like I think Krennic is on a downward trajectory this entire story. Like his arc is just one of constantly being ridiculed and just messing up. He fucks up every single plan. What you guys were saying a little bit earlier, like the scene between Krennic and Tarkin, I think was one of the strongest scenes in this movie, like between two characters, and I think they completely nailed it. It was probably one of my most favorite scenes in the movie, and you can feel the intensity in the dialogue between the two of them.
You mean that first time when Tarkin turns around?
Yeah.
Is that where he threatens? Is that where he threatens and says like, the next audience won't be so nice, like alluding to Vader? Yeah, that was
not even that. I mean, even the next where he takes a credit for the Death Star. I thought that was a brilliant scene as well.
Speaking of which, I really liked how they destroyed Jeddah.
Me too.
The way the Death Star, which is cool because we never really got to see it really from the ground floor. So that was cool to see. The horizon disappear.
I felt like it was very horrific seeing the planet. So that worked for you guys as well then, yeah?
Definitely. It was at that moment, like I went from being like, I don't really care about any of these characters of this movie to like sinking back into my seat so I could take in more of the image and and it was like awe-inspiring, right?
Right.
Like
such
watching that little
weapon.
like blast a zit off the face of that planet, and you just you're seeing the horizon disappear. They did the CG of all of the rocks and the smoke and everything
Yeah.
perfectly, and it was like a nuclear detonation in slow motion, but on a much more massive scale.
Right.
It was.
And they did that brilliant thing where it's that you were in the destruction and it was loud and crazy and noisy,
Right.
and everything's in your face. The rocks are rolling at the camera, and then it pans to total silence, looking at it from above, and all the generals and stuff, engineers are just looking down. Yeah, like Sonny said, like from this little distance, this little explosion. You know, I love when movies show that kind of juxtaposition. You know.
And in the context of the story, right? You don't know. Like, it's nice to know that the Empire itself didn't have this monolithic plan to build this thing and then just immediately start nuking planets, right? There's just a tiny little bit of bureaucracy where, okay, let's test this thing out and see what happens, right? And even then, even though we know it blows up a planet, it's, for whatever reason, it's way more horrifying to watch them blow up just a single city than it is to see them annihilate a planet.
Because you're on the ground level seeing the damage. Because when you just blow up an entire planet, there's no ground level scene. It just kind of evaporates. Sonny, you mentioned a little bit earlier about the hologram scene and of Galen delivering the message. I thought that scene was really cool because they sync that message with the Death Star firing its shot off, and I thought that whole conversation and that scene being intertwined with that conversation was done so beautifully. And it leads perfectly right into the horrific destruction of Jeddah, which couldn't have been shot any better or done any better, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Yeah. So I think we're ready to move on to the next scene.
Yeah.
So our heroes are on the ship, having just escaped the Death Star destroying Jeddah. And Cassian gets a call from the Alliance, and they find out that Galen is at Edu. So the crew decide to go to Edu to check it out. And when they're there, it's, again, another really cool planet, a stormy, rocky planet. And when they get there, Cassian and Bodhi, the pilot, decide to go scope it out to see what's there. And again, Cassian has once again been given orders to kill Galen. And separately, Jyn leaves and I guess is driven that Galen could be there, and she wants to go find her father. And she's a little skeptical of Cassian and his motives. And so once they're there, Krennic and his crew arrive, and Krennic is there, given orders by Darth Vader to go check out what happened on Edu. So we get that amazing, or I don't know if it's so amazing, but we get that introductory Darth Vader scene in this movie. So Krennic and his crew arrive at Edu and pull all the scientists and Galen in a row and confront them about knowing that one of their people have defected, that information has gotten out about the Death Star. And Galen takes credit for it before his men die. Galen takes credit, says that it was me. He confesses. Krennic kills the rest of the scientists regardless. And as that's happening, the Alliance, word gets out to the Alliance that Krennic and there's a station there in Edu. So the Alliance descends on this little station in Edu. And while all that's going on, Galen gets killed. Before he dies, he gets reunited with Jyn. And most importantly, I think in the scene, you see Cassian. Cassian has a clear shot on Galen and opts not to kill him.
Why?
They all rush back. They all rush back to the ship, and they're able to get out, just in the nick of time. And yeah, I think that's the end of that scene.
Why doesn't he take the shot?
I think because he's not a legitimately bad person.
Is that what? That's what it's trying to tell us.
Yeah, either that or maybe because he knows that it's Jin's dad, and that's the only reason why she's going there in the first place. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to tell.
I think it's something that gets alluded to later, a couple of scenes later. I think he's just seen enough. He's seen enough and he's done enough, and we get introduced to him by him killing somebody.
Right.
So it's not. So it's not like he doesn't have the balls. I mean, he killed people, and that dude he killed face to face. He was standing right behind him and shot the dude in the back. So I think it's just he's ready for the world to change in a way, or he's ready now that he's seen Jyn, and Jyn seems to have a clear path, which is even what Chirrut mentions. He even says that in on the ship that her path is clear. So I think that he just kind of is expecting or hoping that like a new leaf is being turned, kind of a thing.
Yeah, man. Edu was cool because is it Edo or is it Edu?
You do anything?
I think it's Edu.
The battle scenes between the TIE fighter and the X-wings were really fun. It was just really well not shot, but it was just like the action was choreographed cool, like pretty well, and it was just fun watching it, man. And I think there's a scene here where like Cassian admits he's been like fighting since he's been 6 years old. I thought that was really powerful, and does a good job of kind of giving you little pieces about the character's backstory, but
Yeah.
putting a lot of meaning behind the, like when a character says something, there's a lot of meaning behind it. But yeah, I think it's a really fun set piece. At this point, when the rebels show up to Edu, they don't know that Galen has already built the Death Star, right?
I forget.
Because I don't.
Are you asking if the Alliance knows that Galen built the Death Star?
Yeah, the Rebel Alliance at this point, they don't know because, I mean, at this
They don't
it's
know
a-
the
it's a
Death Star
moot
has
point.
been built,
Yeah.
but they know that a weapon has been built, and he's like the major engineer.
Well, yeah, they have to know that it's been built because it's what destroyed Jeddah.
Yeah, but I think everyone on Jeddah, there was no transmissions out, right? I mean, it's just like, unless
Yeah,
the hyper
and they hid
drive or
that.
whatever.
Remember, they said that they hid that story. They said it was a mining accident because they didn't blow up the whole thing. So they staged a mining accident to make up for Jeddah. Whether the Alliance knows that, actually, I don't know. But that was
Right.
they had a cover for that story because they can't. Yeah, because I mean, it isn't until the next. No, what am I saying? I was gonna say it's not until the next episode that you really, or episode 4, that you really get revealed the Death Star. But they see the Death Star at the end of this movie.
Yeah, it pulls up on top of what's it, Scarif, and like, I mean,
Yeah.
most of the rebel leaders see it, so they have an idea of this weapon. But I mean, Edu was essentially just a stepping stone for us to go to Scarif. I mean, the major thing we learned is that the plans for the Death Star are stored on Scarif. So it's essentially like a stepping stone for us to get to the next huge action set piece.
Yeah. Yeah, I just thought it was cool. Again, just exploring a new place, like being in a different location. I thought was kind of interesting. And yeah, just getting more time with Cassian, or just getting that little bit of extra plot development. And again, yeah, I mean, I like that they didn't go into it. Yeah, all you need to know about Cassian is he sacrificed enough, and like this war has taken a toll on him, and he's been more involved than Jin. So in a way, his pursuits in this movie or in this war are a lot more noble than Jin, because he's sacrificed a lot more than she has.
Yeah. And this action scene gives Chert a really cool moment where he shoots a TIE fighter down with like a rocket launcher without even being able to see anything. So
Yeah.
one cool moment for me, I'll give him that much, but the rest of them sucked in this movie.
You know, I think he like created a different style of fighting or karate for this movie with that staff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think he like developed different like specific moves just for this character.
That's
Which is
great,
kinda
but
cool.
I still don't care.
All right, so I guess what's next is our heroes go back to the Alliance headquarters, where they try to propose a plan to steal the Death Star plans, and Jin kind of gives her story to the Alliance Council, and the Council opts not to take action and not to fight. They feel like they can't win against the Empire, and it's kind of their time to retreat and surrender. But Jin, as she's leaving angry from this meeting, runs into Cassian and a group of rebels that want to fight, and they decide that they're going to go on their own secret mission to Scarif, where these plans are, and they're going to steal the plans for themselves. So what they decide to do is they steal an Imperial ship, and as they're leaving, this is the ship that Bodhi calls a Rogue One. I guess he kind of gives it the titular line there.
Yeah.
And they break into the Scarif base, and Cassian, K2SO, and Jin infiltrate the base by dressing up as Imperial guards. And we kind of begin the final sequence of the movie, which I guess is, in a nutshell, Jin and Cassian and K2SO find a way into the database that stores the files with the Death Star plans. They have a huge battle scene in order to really fix the satellites, which is the only way they can transmit the data out to the Alliance. A couple of the Alliance generals catch wind that there is a secret mission going on in Scarif. They send it back up, and they have this giant, what I think it was one of the best Star Wars battles. We see both fronts. We see stormtroopers and Alliance fighting on the ground and up in space. Spoiler alert, they actually get the plans out of Scarif. They get it into the Alliance hands, and in the final sequences of the movie, we see an incredible Darth Vader hallway scene as he's trying to get the plans, and we literally see the plans go from hand to hand to hand at the very end, just barely escaping Darth Vader, and ultimately in the hands of Princess Leia. And that's kind of the end of the scene. We see Princess Leia and her ship. I forget what the name of her ship is. We see Princess Leia and her ship dock and leave, and which is essentially the opening scene of A New Hope.
Yep.
It's the Tantive 4.
Tantive 4, there you go.
God.
Sorry. So yeah. So I mean, there you go. There's not a whole lot of story to unpack in that. It's really just a 30-minute sequence of just fighting and action.
Scarif is a fucking cool planet.
Yeah.
That was shot in the Maldives, and it's so beautiful, dude. Like that whole beach scene, everything, that was really beautiful. And visually, the other striking scene I really enjoyed was when they collided the Imperial ship into the gate that kind of keeps the portal, or keeps kind of like a, what do you want to call that? A shield over the planet. I love that sequence where they drive those ships into each other to crash into that portal.
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. I'm
Like,
assuming
physics
gravitational
makes no
pull.
sense.
Gravitational pull. Come on, guys. Gravity, right? And I really loved the final scene with Cassian and Jin.
Yeah.
That's a really beautiful, impactful scene, in my opinion.
Yeah, I will say, watching this in the theaters, when Bodhi died, then the two gay guys, when they died, I forget their names. And then K2SO or whatever, like I was like, oh my god, they're gonna kill everybody off. And then I got really happy, not because I didn't like the characters or anything like that, but I was just like, wow, they're finally
move.
Finally I'm watching a Disney movie that's not hellbent on making a sequel.
Right.
They're just gonna wrap this up really nice and tidy. And that's even before we get the actual Darth Vader reveal, I think. Which just, oh my god, blew me away.
That hallway scene was unbelievable, dude. The only problem I have in that scene, and it just what kills me about these movies, is that scene. That to me was the coolest Darth Vader scene in any movie.
Agreed.
Just that
easily
unbelievable. When he throws that guy and has him attached up against the ceiling
while
as
he's fighting everybody
by,
else. Yeah,
he's fighting everybody, and as he walks by, he just swipes up and just slices him through. Dude, that was so raw. And then you think, yeah, but in like a couple weeks, he's about to fight Obi-Wan, and it's the worst. Oh my gosh! Man.
Yeah,
it's so slow. It's so bad. So that's the only problem about going back and adding these awesome effects now. Is like that is Darth Vader. Like that should have been Darth Vader. He should have been a badass, agile fighting machine, a death machine. And then we see that. And then I guess, in a couple weeks he's going to get like really bad knees and arthritis and just won't be able to move. But that's
maybe
the only.
Make another movie about what happened in between, in the in between moments of episode 6.
Yeah.
I
wish I had a soundboard of him going no. At the end.
Sonny, you mentioned the ending was so effective because you knew that there wasn't going to be a sequel to this specific story. I think the fact that they are sprawling out this huge Star Wars universe with guaranteed sequels based on the main storyline will maybe give us more of these spin-offs or one-offs, which would be great to have. And standalone movies. And I hope that they don't have each standalone movie have multiple sequels. That would just defeat the purpose of these like one-off stories, you know?
Well, I wouldn't put it past them, right?
Yeah.
Like,
agreed.
if I didn't already know that the Han Solo movie was a complete production shit show and might actually end up being bad, I would not put it past them to try to make a whole trilogy out of that.
Oh yeah, easily. Like that's my fear about those origin movies that they're trying to pitch with this, because that'll become its own trilogy and it'll be terrible because they're gonna have to constantly like keep in mind the main trilogies, and they're gonna have to like just do this dance that's gonna be just terrible.
It's really like hopeful at first because Disney's giving these young directors a shot at these one-off movies, but then they keep fucking it up, and they have to, you know, you hear all these stories about production issues. Like even Rogue One had like a lot of rewrites and issues in production. Like young guys, stop fucking shit up so we can have like not safe movies. We want like something to push the envelope with Star Wars. But
otherwise they're just gonna bring in J.J. Binks to fix everything, right? To add a
too good.
And fix the movie.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, I thought it was really beautiful. Again, we're in a really cool new location. It's not anything we've seen in Star Wars. Like the beaches, like it was just a whole scene of beaches, which I thought was really, really cool. And then not to mention, K2SO's self-sacrifice was like, it was very touching. Like that character, Alan Tudyk, is just so good at bringing, his voice to life.
Yeah.
And that character was so awesome. I mean, he was the funniest parts in the movies. He had the most personality of any of the people in that movie.
Right, the robot. Yeah.
Yeah, the robot. The robot brought the most heart to this movie, and him sacrificing himself was just so epic. I just felt you felt for it in that moment, and you can hear his voice, his like voice modulator, kind of like dying as he's talking. They did that really, really, really well.
Yeah, I definitely felt more for his dying than any other characters.
Yeah.
And they definitely don't give robots guns enough in movies.
Yeah.
Like they are by definition like machines. So so great at warfare.
He's arguably the best robot character we've seen in Star Wars, and I think he's better than C-3PO or R2-D2 or R2-D2 or the new one, the new ball.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far. I think I like R2 the most. BB-8's
really
a little
talk
bitch.
or remote.
Right, but K2SO I think definitely he definitely comes
character.
Second for me.
Right.
Yeah.
He has like the sarcasm and stuff. He has like the sarcasm that C-3PO is trying to get away with.
Yeah, without being an obnoxious, nervous punk.
Yeah.
Honestly, man, C-3PO is just a nerd. We all know it is. He's just not funny at all.
He's like what a Star Wars fanboy would be if they were in the Star Wars universe. Oh my!
That's a very good impression.
Complaining too.
Yeah, constantly complaining, always nervous, and that's only a 33% chance.
So yeah, I mean that was the movie.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, that was indeed the movie. Yeah, so no more
Cool story. That's a great way to say shit.
Yeah, great way. So I guess, since we're not going to talk about plot and stuff anymore, one thing I did want to bring up, since again talking about all the fan service in this movie, I just wanted to bring up a few of the things that I spotted in the movie that were homages to the original trilogies. And right from the opening scene, we see the blue milk and at the Galen's house, right? They zoom in on that. They want to remind you that there's blue milk in this universe. What about the two guys that we see in the cantina on in A New Hope?
Yeah,
we see them right before they get their arms cut off. So I guess they're able to escape Jeddah. They get off the island in time, or get off the planet.
Throwing random eggs around here.
We see we already mentioned Mon Mothma and Bail Organa, C-3PO, and R2-D2.
When you guys watched this movie in theaters, during these Easter eggs, did the crowd react? Did your crowd do anything?
Yeah, like the C-3PO R2-D2, you know, the crowd was a collective like, oh, whoa, these guys are in this movie.
I know those guys.
I mean, there were like chuckles here and there.
Yeah.
I mean, especially with the two guys from the cantina. I mean, they're just they've become such like a pop culture reference for just the most ridiculous, the weirdest scene, you know. And like Family Guys made fun of them, Robot Chickens made fun of them. So like
Right.
to see them again in a movie was just kind of the crowd reacted to that.
The reason I ask is I've heard like there's some audiences that go above and beyond and like get up and clap and cheer and woot and stuff like that. So
Yeah, no, I didn't have any weirdos in my
There's
theater.
morons everywhere.
Yeah. Did you guys notice that Darth Vader's little place where it was?
same place where he got burned, right?
Yeah, Mustafar. Yeah, I looked that up later. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But that was. I don't think they really made a specific mention to that, but
I think
that
like
was
in
cool.
some either graphic novel or the novelization or whatever, they talk more about it, and the reasoning being that it's like his own form of self-torture
Interesting.
for becoming
Oh, really?
A constant
Vader.
reminder.
yeah.
And then also, what I think a lot of fans really liked, I didn't pick up the first time I watched it. My sister kind of told me about it. Was the Gold Leader scenes at the fight scene at the end? Was it the Gold Leader, Blue Leader? They're originally shot for the original trilogy, and I thought they did a great job of just splicing those in. However, they fixed up the actual video files themselves, but they look like they fit into this movie really well.
Wait, you're saying that they didn't bring the actors back? They used original footage?
Yeah.
What? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so some of the footage where you see that them, you know, telling their call signs, where it's like you can see into the cockpit. Yeah, a couple of those, and when you watch and you know that, you can pick them off.
Well, why didn't they bring Porkins back?
They had another fat guy die, didn't they? So they kind of
probably.
Token fat guy who dies first.
Yeah, there's got to be one in every Star Wars movie. You know.
So, for this generation of Star Wars fans, The Force Awakens and Rogue One, are those two good entries? Like, if we take away our association from this franchise and series, like, wouldn't you consider this two solid entries into the Star Wars franchise?
I mean, I think Rogue One more than Force Awakens, honestly.
That's taking away all your previous biases, and I'm assuming like the generation this movie's made for hasn't seen A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and what's the sixth one?
Return of the Jedi.
Return of the Jedi. Do you know what I mean?
Wait, so are you saying if these were the only two movies, would they be good?
Yeah.
No.
Like for this generation, like without any context of the older movies, like had they made a good impression on this new generation of fans they're trying to capture?
Oh, then I changed my answer. I say Force Awakens does that really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, are you kidding me? Kids love that movie. There's like
that's
plenty of little laughs that kids will like, and it's, I don't know, it's adventurous and.
But
I mean,
outside of just thinking of it as like putting yourself in a kid's shoe, like I think like stylistically and story wise, I think it's okay to where like a lot of kids these days will like enjoy it as a full movie, as an addition to this universe.
Yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts? You seem to be like really drilling this in and unsatisfied with the answers. So what are you getting at, man?
Yeah. Why don't you tell us what you think?
I hate Star Wars, guys. This is my confession. No, I had another question for you guys. So, does Rogue One seem like a better sequel to New Hope than A New Hope to Empire Strikes Back?
What do you mean?
A better prequel, you mean?
I guess, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
if Rogue One was the first one and A New Hope was 2, does that work better than 4 and 5 as its own piece?
I don't think so.
5 is just too good. You can't remove 5 in any equation.
Yeah.
5 is okay. All right.
5 is that night.
I'm excited for us to review episode 5 as well.
What did you think of their use of CG of the characters in this movie? Like, we kind of talked about Tarkin, but what were your thoughts?
When I first
Leia was
watched
like
it-
a lot worse.
Yeah. When I first watched it in theaters, a little jarring. I could tell there's something off. But, I mean, it works okay. No complaints.
They still don't have mouths down.
Yep.
There's just too many muscles, too
Exactly.
many minor movements, and not even minor movements. It's that they subdue a lot of the actual nuance and movements in when they do it in CG, which makes it look like it almost makes it look like a robot that doesn't have enough motors
Mm-hmm.
uh, with like to move the actual skin that they layer on top. That's what they end up looking like. And I thought it was despite having looked at Tarkin for like 20 times longer than we looked at Leia in the movie. Leia's looks so much worse.
Yeah.
And all she just said one word. She just said hope, and it looks so bad.
Yeah, I agree. It looked like it was dubbed. It looked like she said a longer word and they just said hope.
Yeah, but Tarkin, by the time we see him the second time around, I almost forgot that he's alive and that we're not watching someone real. They did.
Well, and also with Leia too, for you guys, I saw this movie like the day that she died. So like I saw it in theaters, and then it was like that day she had passed away. So it was also like a little bit of that sting of her, just passing away. So just seeing an image of her, anyways, just as we thought it was going to be, and I guess is she going to be in episode 8? But we thought this would be the last time we would see Leia, and it was kind of like a nice, sweet send off, an unknown send off, because obviously didn't know that she was going to die. But that wears with time. So like even now, just a year later, like I kind of let it go because I was like, okay, it's Leia, and I had a soft spot for Carrie Fisher, but it's impactful.
It just kind of scares me that the better that technology gets, the less actors that they need to be like actually on set to shoot that stuff. Because like a lot of these iconic actors from Star Wars are passing away, and it's kind of
even worse is that they can hire cheap actors,
right,
and then just CG the faces of the actors they want on top of them.
Yeah, so I'm actively rooting against this technology, and I hope it never works out.
What were y'all's favorite scenes or least favorite scenes?
Darth Vader hallway scene.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Easily number one. And any scene with Forrest Whitaker, put it at the very bottom.
Yeah. Yeah, second favorite scene being the Death Star nuking Jeddah.
Yeah.
Like the whole Jeddah sequence.
Yeah. The scene was just blah, tied for last.
Yeah. Scarf was fun too. That's there's a setting of Scarf. I'd like that.
I don't know. I also just thought there were a couple of things that why did Saul and Chirrut's sidekick exist? And we can get into the whole why does this movie exist, but why do those characters exist?
I'm sorry.
Like,
what
was the point of those characters? Like, and Boz, I think that's his name. The
sidekicks.
Cultural diversity.
The other gay guy.
Yeah, told you.
Yeah, essentially
That's
actually, that's a good point. Yeah.
Well, I mean, for Saw, it's like they didn't want to reveal him, so they just had some lackey operating on his behalf. And then with the other two, they were just a gay couple. So one's a sidekick to the other, just that they're both there.
Also, I think
deal.
Saw is a big part of like the Clone Wars cartoon series on Cartoon Network, so he kind of fits into their whole Star Wars universe.
Is it Clone Wars or Rebels?
Don't know exactly. Don't quote me on that.
Okay.
All right, so I guess in conclusion, I mean, any final thoughts on the movie, and you think it fits in the universe, and are we overall happy or unhappy that this movie was made?
I'm happy it was made. At least it was more original than Force Awakens.
Okay.
That's Sonny's answer to every Star Wars movie question. It's better than Force Awakens. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna piggyback on what he said. It's a good movie, good standalone movie for Star Wars. I think it's what the franchise needed. I think it needed some shaking up, and I think this is maybe a movie that'll maybe start knocking down the other dominoes. But as a whole, I enjoyed Rogue One, even though it has a lot of flaws that we discussed. But yeah, it's a good movie.
Yeah, I'll agree with you guys. I liked it. I thought it was a good piece of the story, and the slightest bit of hope for any other Star Wars story that comes out.
Yep.
Like, I would be totally skeptical of everything if it wasn't for this movie. I would be totally skeptical of Han Solo if it wasn't for Rogue One. So if it did anything, it accomplished the idea that they can branch out outside of the typical trilogies, and it could be worth watching.
Well said.
Agreed.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. That's our episode. Yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, if you have any questions, emails, shoot us an email at nocampspod@gmail.com. We're also on Stitcher, so if you get your podcast from there, find us on that platform. And also our Twitter is nocampspodcast. All right, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Peace.
Bye.